It reminds me of a story that I've been following. It's a story of an elk who lives in Colorado, and somehow this full-grown elk got this huge tire, a steel-belted tire, wrapped around its neck and lived that way for 2 whole years. And I have to wonder, did that elk kind of get used to, accustomed to, adjusted to carrying all this extra weight? Did it just schlep it around thinking that's the way things are? It's not going to change. There's no hope for being relieved of that burden. And I wonder if sometimes we don't think the same thing, that we carry around such heavy expectations and burdens. And the good news is the presence of Christ yearns to help us lift that burden. I want to finish the story of what happened to that elk that had the tire trapped around its neck. It took a community that saw the need in front of them. The community members had noticed for about 2 years, they would see sightings of a herd of elks, and they could see the one with the large tire, steel-belted tire, trapped around its neck. And they began to communicate with Colorado wildlife officials whenever there was a sighting. But it took 2 years until the sighting was close enough and the conditions were right that the officials could run out and chase after the elk and sedate it. And they wanted to saw off that tire and make sure the elk was free. Well, there was it was a steel-belted tire, and they realized the sedation was going to run off, be done with, before they could get all the way through the tire. So they made the decision to cut off the antlers of the elk and slip the tire off just before the sedation wore off. There's another piece to this story. The next day, as the story got out on social media, there was pushback, there was an outcry, because people were aghast that the antlers had been cut off. They criticized the move. They wondered if it did more harm than good. And so the wildlife officials, had to post on social media that actually, in the course of a year, they often had to remove elk antlers because the antlers got caught up in hammocks or Halloween decorations or whatever, and antlers grow back. So what they did was misunderstood at times. And I think, too, when we live into the scripture we just heard, the invitation, the expectation that as followers of Jesus, when we see a need right in front of us, we go to meet that need. It might be misunderstood. People might criticize it, just like the folks that didn't fully understand what was happening with the elk and the need there. But let's not let that stop us.